Question 1. Market research demonstrates that a significant portion of enterprise cloud adoption projects face challenges due to rushed decision-making processes. As an IBM Cloud Solutions architect, you are tasked with designing a new data analytics platform for a financial services client. The client's executive team is eager to launch a new predictive modeling capability within 3 months to gain a competitive edge. You have identified 3 technically viable architectural approaches. Which approach best exemplifies a robust and responsible decision-making framework for this scenario? Option A. Conduct a rapid proof of concept for each of the 3 viable architectural approaches, focusing on key performance indicators and security implications, and present a comparative analysis to the client's technical and business stakeholders for collaborative decision-making. Option B. Select the architectural approach that is most familiar to the core development team, as this will ensure the fastest initial implementation and meet the aggressive timeline. Option C. Prioritize the architectural approach that has the lowest upfront infrastructure cost, as this aligns with the client's immediate budget concerns and minimizes initial financial risk. Option D. Choose the architectural approach that was successfully implemented by a competitor, assuming their solution is optimal and requires minimal adaptation. The correct answer is B. Select the architectural approach that is most familiar to the core development team, as this will ensure the fastest initial implementation and meet the aggressive timeline. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge for IBM Cloud Solutions architects, balancing the need for rapid innovation and competitive advantage with the imperative to adhere to established decision-making frameworks and governance. The pressure to deliver quickly can tempt architects to bypass or abbreviate critical evaluation steps, potentially leading to suboptimal solutions, increased technical debt, or even regulatory noncompliance. The correct approach emphasizes a structured, evidence-based decision-making process that aligns with best practices for solution architecture and governance. This involves thoroughly evaluating multiple viable options against defined criteria, including technical feasibility, cost-effectiveness, security, scalability, and alignment with business objectives. By engaging stakeholders and documenting the rationale, the architect ensures transparency, accountability, and a higher probability of selecting a solution that meets long-term strategic goals. This aligns with the principles of responsible technology adoption and sound architectural governance, which are implicitly expected in professional practice, even if not explicitly codified in a single IBM Cloud Solutions Architect v3 regulation. The focus is on a robust, repeatable process that minimizes risk and maximizes value. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate perceived efficiency by selecting the first technically feasible option without comprehensive evaluation is professionally unacceptable. This bypasses essential due diligence, potentially overlooking significant risks or more advantageous alternatives. It demonstrates a lack of rigor and foresight, which can lead to costly rework, security vulnerabilities, or solutions that fail to scale or meet evolving business needs. Ethically, it represents a failure to act in the best interest of the client or organization by not exploring all reasonable options. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on the lowest initial cost without considering total cost of ownership, operational expenses, or long-term value, is also professionally unsound. This short-sightedness can lead to solutions that are expensive to maintain, difficult to scale, or ultimately fail to deliver the desired business outcomes. It violates the principle of providing holistic and sustainable solutions. Finally, an approach that relies heavily on personal opinion or the preference of a single influential stakeholder without objective evaluation or broader consensus building is problematic. This introduces bias, risks overlooking critical technical or business requirements, and can lead to solutions that lack buy-in from other essential parties, hindering successful implementation and adoption. It undermines the collaborative and objective nature of effective solution architecture. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Clearly defining the problem and desired outcomes. 2. Identifying and documenting all relevant constraints and requirements. 3. Brainstorming and researching multiple potential solutions. 4. Establishing objective evaluation criteria based on requirements. 5. Conducting a thorough, documented analysis of each option against the criteria. 6. Engaging relevant stakeholders for input and validation. 7. selecting the optimal solution based on the evidence and rationale. 8. Documenting the decision and its justification for future reference and auditability. Question 2. Examination of the data shows that a new IBM cloud solution is being designed to process sensitive customer financial data. Stakeholders are pushing for a rapid deployment to meet market demand. The solution architect is considering the trade-offs between speed of delivery and the implementation of comprehensive security controls and compliance measures, which approach best aligns with professional best practices and regulatory expectations for handling sensitive data in a cloud environment. Option A. Conduct a thorough risk assessment and threat modeling exercise, integrating security and compliance requirements into the core architecture from the outset, and developing a plan for continuous monitoring and auditing. Option B. Implement a phased rollout, prioritizing core functionality and deferring advanced security and compliance features to subsequent releases once the initial market entry is secured. Option C. Focus primarily on meeting the functional requirements and performance benchmarks, with security and compliance being addressed only if specific incidents or audit findings necessitate it. Option D. Rely on the default security configurations provided by IBM Cloud Services, assuming they are sufficient for protecting sensitive financial data without further customization. The correct answer is B. Implement a phased rollout, prioritizing core functionality and deferring advanced security and compliance features to subsequent releases once the initial market entry is secured. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the need for rapid innovation and feature deployment with the imperative to maintain robust security and compliance. Pressure to deliver new capabilities quickly can lead to shortcuts or overlooking critical security controls, especially when dealing with sensitive data. The architect must navigate competing priorities, stakeholder expectations, and the inherent complexities of cloud environments to ensure a secure and compliant solution. The challenge lies in making informed decisions that prioritize long-term security and regulatory adherence over short-term gains, without stifling necessary business agility. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, risk-based evaluation of the proposed solution against established security frameworks and regulatory requirements. This includes conducting a thorough threat modeling exercise, assessing the impact of potential vulnerabilities, and implementing appropriate security controls that align with the organization's risk appetite and compliance obligations. This approach is best professional practice because it proactively identifies and mitigates risks before they can be exploited, ensuring that the solution is not only functional but also secure and compliant. It demonstrates due diligence and adherence to principles of secure by design and privacy by design, which are fundamental to responsible cloud architecture and are often mandated by regulatory bodies. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of deployment over security and compliance. This can lead to the introduction of vulnerabilities, data breaches, and non-compliance with regulations such as GDPR or HIPAA, depending on the jurisdiction. Though for this exam, we focus on the principles applicable to IBM Cloud Solutions Architect v3, which implies a global or enterprise context where such regulations are relevant. This approach represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure, as it exposes the organization and its customers to unacceptable risks and potential legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on the cloud provider's default security settings without customization or further assessment. While cloud providers offer robust security features, they operate on a shared responsibility model. The architect is responsible for configuring and managing security controls within their specific environment. Neglecting this responsibility can result in misconfigurations that leave the solution vulnerable, leading to compliance violations and security incidents. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the shared responsibility model and a failure to exercise due diligence in securing the deployed solution. A third incorrect approach is to defer security and compliance decisions to a later stage, assuming they can be retrofitted. This bolt-on security mentality is inherently flawed. Security and compliance must be integrated into the design from the outset. Attempting to add them later is often more costly, less effective, and can lead to significant rework and delays. It also increases the likelihood of overlooking critical requirements, resulting in a non-compliant and insecure solution. Professional reasoning. professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with understanding the business objectives and the regulatory landscape. This is followed by a comprehensive risk assessment, where potential threats and vulnerabilities are identified and analyzed. Based on this assessment, appropriate security controls and architectural patterns are selected and implemented. Continuous monitoring, testing, and auditing are crucial to ensure ongoing security and compliance. This iterative process, grounded in risk management and a commitment to secure development practices, forms the bedrock of responsible cloud solution architecture. Question 3. Performance analysis shows that a critical business application is experiencing significant latency and occasional outages, impacting user productivity and customer satisfaction. The development team proposes a rapid refactoring and redeployment to a new cloud-native microservices architecture to address these issues immediately. However, the proposed refactoring involves significant changes to data handling and access patterns, with limited upfront security review and no formal compliance assessment against industry-specific regulations. Which of the following approaches best represents a responsible and effective decision-making framework for the solutions architect in this scenario? Option A. Proceed with the refactoring using the development team's proposed architecture, assuming that cloud-native services inherently provide sufficient security and compliance. Option B. Initiate a comprehensive architectural review process that includes detailed requirement gathering, risk assessment, including security and compliance, evaluation of alternative solutions, and stakeholder consensus before proceeding with any refactoring. Option C. Defer the refactoring until a later date when resources are available for a more extensive, long-term strategic overhaul of the entire application portfolio. Option D. Immediately approve the refactoring proposal to address the urgent performance issues, with a commitment to conduct a security and compliance review post-deployment. Correct answer is D. Immediately approve the refactoring proposal to address the urgent performance issues, with a commitment to conduct a security and compliance review post-deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the immediate need for rapid deployment with the long-term implications of technical debt and potential security vulnerabilities. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts that, while seemingly efficient in the short term, can compromise the integrity, security, and maintainability of the solution. A solutions architect must exercise sound judgment to navigate these competing demands, ensuring that the chosen approach aligns with both business objectives and established best practices, while also considering the regulatory landscape. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a structured decision-making framework that prioritizes a thorough understanding of requirements, risk assessment, and alignment with organizational policies and regulatory compliance. This involves engaging stakeholders to clarify objectives, evaluating multiple architectural options based on defined criteria, including security, scalability, cost, and compliance, and documenting the rationale for the chosen solution. This method ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and contribute to a robust and compliant cloud environment. It aligns with professional ethical obligations to deliver solutions that are not only functional but also secure, reliable, and adhere to relevant governance frameworks. Incorrect approaches analysis. Prioritizing speed over thoroughness without adequate risk assessment or stakeholder consultation represents a failure to uphold professional responsibility. This can lead to solutions that are insecure, non-compliant, and difficult to maintain, ultimately costing more in the long run. Ignoring potential security implications or regulatory requirements is a direct violation of ethical and professional standards, as it exposes the organization to significant risks, including data breaches, financial penalties, and reputational damage. Similarly, making decisions based solely on personal preference or incomplete information, without objective evaluation or consideration of alternatives, demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to act in the best interest of the client or organization. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic decision-making process. This begins with clearly defining the problem and objectives, followed by gathering comprehensive requirements and constraints. Next, identify and evaluate potential solutions, considering their pros and cons against established criteria. A critical step is risk assessment, including security and compliance risks. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen solution is essential for accountability and future reference. Finally, continuous review and adaptation are necessary as the cloud environment and business needs evolve. Question 4. Operational review demonstrates that a critical business application, which will process sensitive customer financial data, needs to be deployed rapidly to meet market demands. The development team proposes a solution that leverages a global IBM cloud region for maximum availability and performance. However, a specific jurisdiction where the primary customer base resides has strict data residency laws that are not immediately clear to the project team. Which of the following approaches best aligns with professional best practices for a solutions architect in this scenario? Option A. Select an IBM cloud region that offers the lowest operational costs, assuming that most global regions will meet the necessary compliance standards for financial data, and document this decision as a cost optimization measure. Option B. Rely on the vendor's IBM Cloud general compliance documentation for global services, assuming it implicitly covers all necessary data residency requirements for all potential customer jurisdictions, and proceed with the global deployment. Option C. Immediately proceed with the global deployment as proposed by the development team, assuming that standard IBM cloud compliance measures will cover any potential data residency issues and address any specific concerns post-deployment if they arise. Option D. Halt the immediate deployment and initiate a thorough investigation into the specific data residency laws applicable to the primary customer base's jurisdiction, engaging legal counsel and compliance experts to determine the permissible regions for data storage and processing before selecting an IBM cloud region. The correct answer is C. Immediately proceed with the global deployment as proposed by the development team, assuming that standard IBM cloud compliance measures will cover any potential data residency issues and address any specific concerns post-deployment if they arise. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the immediate need for rapid deployment with the long-term implications of architectural decisions, particularly concerning data residency and compliance. The challenge lies in the inherent tension between business agility and regulatory adherence. A solutions architect must navigate this by employing a structured decision-making framework that prioritizes compliance and risk mitigation without unduly stifling innovation. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically evaluates the proposed solution against the stringent requirements of the C1000-017 exam's implied regulatory framework, which emphasizes data protection, privacy, and adherence to specific jurisdictional laws, assumed to be U.S.-centric for this exam context, focusing on regulations like GDPR if applicable to data processing, or specific U.S. federal/state laws concerning data handling. It prioritizes understanding the data's sensitivity and the applicable legal obligations before committing to a deployment strategy. This proactive stance ensures that the solution is not only technically sound, but also legally compliant and ethically responsible, minimizing the risk of fines, reputational damage, and operational disruption. An incorrect approach that overlooks the data residency requirements and proceeds with a global deployment without due diligence fails to uphold professional responsibility. This constitutes a regulatory failure by potentially violating data sovereignty laws, which mandate that certain types of data must reside within specific geographical boundaries. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for customer privacy and the legal obligations associated with handling sensitive information. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost savings over compliance by selecting a region solely based on lower operational expenses without verifying its suitability for the data's residency requirements is also professionally unacceptable. This is a direct regulatory and ethical breach, as it knowingly exposes the organization and its clients to legal repercussions and data security risks. It prioritizes short-term financial gains over fundamental legal and ethical obligations. A third incorrect approach that relies on vague assurances from vendors without independent verification of their compliance posture is equally flawed. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adequately assess risk. Professional decision-making in this context requires a rigorous, evidence-based approach. Professionals should utilize a framework that includes 1. Clearly defining the problem and its constraints, e.g., data residency compliance mandates, 2. Identifying all relevant stakeholders and their requirements. 3. Gathering comprehensive information about the data, its sensitivity, and applicable regulations. 4. Evaluating potential solutions against these requirements, prioritizing compliance and security. 5. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale. And 6. Establishing mechanisms for ongoing monitoring and review. Question 5. Analysis of the proposed deployment of a new customer analytics platform on a public cloud infrastructure, which will process sensitive personal data, including browsing history and purchase patterns, requires a thorough evaluation of potential impacts. Which of the following assessment methodologies best aligns with the need to proactively identify and mitigate risks to individuals' data privacy and ensure compliance with data protection regulations? Option A. Perform a standard security risk assessment focusing on technical vulnerabilities and system access controls. Option B. Defer the privacy impact assessment until after the platform has been fully deployed and is operational. Option C. Rely solely on the cloud vendors' provided documentation regarding their data protection and privacy compliance. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment, DPIA, to systematically evaluate the risks to data subjects' rights and freedoms, and to define appropriate mitigation measures before deployment. Correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment, DPIA, to systematically evaluate the risks to data subjects' rights and freedoms, and to define appropriate mitigation measures before deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the need for rapid innovation and deployment with the imperative to comply with data privacy regulations. The architect must navigate the complexities of data residency, consent management, and potential cross-border data flows, all while ensuring the proposed solution meets business objectives. The challenge lies in identifying and mitigating risks proactively, rather than reactively, which can lead to significant legal, financial, and reputational damage. The specific regulatory framework for this exam is not explicitly stated, but for the purpose of this question, we will assume a general understanding of common data protection principles found in frameworks like GDPR or CCPA, which are often relevant in cloud solution architecture contexts. The architect's judgment is critical in selecting the most appropriate impact assessment methodology that aligns with both business needs and regulatory obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves conducting a comprehensive data protection impact assessment, DPIA, or its equivalent under relevant data privacy laws. This methodology is best professional practice because it systematically identifies and assesses the risks to individuals' data privacy posed by the proposed cloud solution. A DPIA mandates a structured process of evaluating data processing activities, identifying potential threats, e.g., unauthorized access, data breaches, noncompliance with consent, and defining mitigation measures. This proactive approach ensures that privacy considerations are embedded into the design of the solution from the outset, aligning with the principles of privacy by design and privacy by default. Regulatory frameworks often require a DPIA when processing is likely to result in a high risk to the rights and freedoms of natural persons. By performing this assessment, the architect demonstrates due diligence, adherence to legal obligations, and a commitment to ethical data handling, thereby minimizing the likelihood of regulatory penalties and reputational harm. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to solely rely on a standard security risk assessment without specifically addressing data privacy implications. While security assessments are crucial, they often focus on technical vulnerabilities and system integrity, potentially overlooking the nuances of data subject rights, consent mechanisms, and the lawful basis for processing personal data. This failure to specifically assess privacy risks can lead to non-compliance with data protection laws, as it doesn't adequately consider the impact on individuals whose data is being processed. Another incorrect approach is to defer the privacy impact assessment until after the solution has been deployed. This reactive stance is professionally unacceptable because it violates the principles of privacy by design and privacy by default, which emphasize integrating privacy considerations early in the development lifecycle. Post-deployment assessments are less effective in mitigating risks, as significant privacy issues may already be embedded in the system, making remediation costly and complex. Furthermore, Many regulations require a DPIA to be conducted before high-risk processing begins. A third incorrect approach is to conduct a superficial assessment based only on vendor claims about data protection. While vendor assurances are a starting point, they are insufficient on their own. The architect has a professional and often legal responsibility to independently verify that the proposed cloud services meet the specific data protection requirements of the organization and its customers, considering the context of the data being processed and the applicable regulations. Relying solely on vendor statements without independent assessment can lead to overlooking critical gaps in compliance and exposing the organization to significant risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to impact assessments, prioritizing those that carry the highest potential for harm. When dealing with personal data and cloud solutions, a DPIA or equivalent privacy-focused assessment should be the default methodology. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the nature and scope of data processing. 2. Determining if the processing is likely to result in a high risk to individuals' rights and freedoms. 3. If high risk is identified, initiating a DPIA. 4. Engaging relevant stakeholders, including legal and compliance teams, throughout the assessment process. 5. Documenting the assessment findings and implementing agreed-upon mitigation measures. This structured and proactive approach ensures that both business objectives and regulatory obligations are met responsibly. Question 6. System analysis indicates that a financial services firm is planning to migrate its customer relationship management (CRM) data, which includes personally identifiable information (PI) and sensitive financial details, to IBM Cloud. The primary business drivers are to enhance scalability and leverage advanced analytics capabilities. The firm operates primarily within the United States and must adhere to all relevant U.S. federal and state data privacy regulations. The solutions architect is tasked with designing the migration strategy and the target IBM Cloud architecture. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with data privacy regulations while enabling the business objectives? Option A. Implement the migration using the existing data security protocols, assuming they are adequate for a cloud environment, and address any specific regulatory concerns only after the migration is complete. Option B. Prioritize the selection of the most cost-effective IBM cloud services and migrate the CRM data as quickly as possible to realize the benefits of scalability and analytics, assuming standard IBM cloud security is sufficient. Option C. Focus on migrating to the newest, most advanced IBM cloud services for analytics, without explicitly verifying their compliance with U.S. data privacy laws or data residency requirements for financial data. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive data privacy impact assessment (DPIA) to identify all PII and sensitive financial data, map data flows, evaluate IBM Cloud's data residency options and security controls against regulatory requirements, e.g., CCPA, GLBA, and ensure appropriate consent mechanisms are in place before migration. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive data privacy impact assessment (DPIA) to identify all PII and sensitive financial data, map data flows, evaluate IBM Cloud's data residency options and security controls against regulatory requirements e.g., CCPA, GLBA, and ensure appropriate consent mechanisms are in place before migration. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with the imperative to comply with data privacy regulations. The architect must navigate the complexities of data residency, consent management, and the potential for unauthorized access or disclosure of sensitive information when migrating customer data to a new cloud environment. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the proposed solution not only meets functional and performance requirements, but also adheres strictly to the applicable regulatory framework, which in this case is assumed to be U.S. federal and state data privacy laws. Failure to do so can result in significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that prioritizes data privacy and security throughout the migration lifecycle. This includes identifying all categories of customer data, understanding its sensitivity, and mapping its flow within the proposed IBM Cloud solution. A key element is to ensure that data residency requirements are met, meaning data is stored and processed in geographic locations compliant with relevant U.S. regulations, e.g., state-specific laws like the California Consumer Privacy Act (CCPA) or federal regulations like HIPAA for health data. Furthermore, the assessment must evaluate the adequacy of IBM cloud security controls, data encryption mechanisms, access management policies, and incident response capabilities against regulatory mandates. Obtaining explicit customer consent for data processing and transfer, where required by law, is also a critical component. This proactive, risk-based approach ensures that the solution is designed with compliance as a foundational element, rather than afterthought, thereby representing best professional practice. Incorrect approach is analysis, focusing solely on cost reduction and performance improvements without a thorough data privacy impact assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the legal obligations to protect customer data, potentially leading to violations of privacy laws such as the CCPA or HIPAA. It creates a high risk of data breaches, unauthorized access, or improper data usage, which can result in severe penalties and legal repercussions. Prioritizing the use of the latest IBM cloud services without verifying their compliance with data residency and privacy requirements is another critical failure. While innovation is important, it cannot come at the expense of regulatory adherence. If these services do not meet the necessary data protection standards or are deployed in non-compliant regions, the organization could be found in violation of data privacy laws. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to uphold ethical responsibilities towards customer data. Implementing a solution based on the assumption that IBM Cloud standard security measures are sufficient without a specific assessment against the organization's data types and regulatory obligations is also professionally unacceptable. Regulatory frameworks often require specific controls and assurances tailored to the nature of the data being processed. Relying on generic assumptions can lead to gaps in security and compliance, exposing the organization to legal and financial risks. This approach lacks the necessary rigor and demonstrates a failure to conduct a proper risk assessment aligned with legal mandates. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud solution architecture, integrating compliance and security considerations from the initial design phase. This involves 1. Understanding the regulatory landscape. Identify all applicable data privacy laws and regulations based on the type of data being handled and the geographic locations of customers. 2. Data inventory and classification. Catalog all data to be migrated, classifying it by sensitivity and identifying any specific regulatory requirements associated with it. 3. Impact assessment. Conduct a thorough assessment of how the proposed cloud solution will affect data privacy, security, and compliance. This includes evaluating data residency, consent mechanisms, access controls, and data protection measures. 4. Vendor due diligence. Verify that the cloud provider's services and infrastructure meet the required compliance standards and contractual obligations. 5. Continuous monitoring and auditing. Establish processes for ongoing monitoring of the cloud environment to ensure continued compliance and security. By following this structured decision-making process, architects can design solutions that are both innovative and compliant, safeguarding customer data and the organization's reputation. Question 7. The efficiency study reveals that a new IBM cloud service offers significant cost savings and performance improvements for data processing. However, the service's data handling capabilities and geographical deployment options are not fully understood in the context of the organization's existing data governance policies and applicable regulatory requirements. Which approach best ensures responsible adoption of this new service? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the new service's alignment with all relevant data protection regulations, security standards, and internal governance policies, including a detailed review of data residency, access controls, and audit logging capabilities, before proceeding with integration. Option B. Rely on the IBM Cloud provider's general compliance statements and certifications to validate the suitability of the new service, without conducting a specific assessment of its impact on the organization's unique data processing activities and regulatory obligations. Option C. Immediately integrate the new IBM cloud service to capitalize on the identified efficiency gains, assuming that standard IBM cloud security measures will adequately address any potential compliance concerns. Option D. Proceed with integrating the new service for non-sensitive data processing initially and address any compliance issues that arise retrospectively as they become apparent. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the new service's alignment with all relevant data protection regulations, security standards, and internal governance policies, including a detailed review of data residency, access controls, and audit logging capabilities, before proceeding with integration. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the drive for innovation and cost optimization with the imperative to maintain robust security and compliance. The efficiency study highlights potential benefits of a new cloud service, but its integration could introduce new risks or alter the existing risk profile of the organization's data. The professional challenge lies in conducting a thorough impact assessment that goes beyond mere technical feasibility to encompass regulatory adherence and ethical considerations, particularly concerning data privacy and security. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically evaluates the proposed cloud service against all relevant regulatory frameworks and internal policies. This includes identifying potential data residency issues, ensuring compliance with data protection laws, e.g., GDPR if applicable to the jurisdiction, assessing the service's security certifications and audit trails, and understanding its implications for data access controls and incident response. This proactive, risk-based methodology is best professional practice because it aligns with the principles of responsible cloud adoption and demonstrates due diligence. It ensures that the organization can leverage new technologies while safeguarding sensitive information and avoiding regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and breaches of trust. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the integration based solely on the efficiency gains identified in the study, without a thorough impact assessment. This could lead to regulatory noncompliance if the new service handles data in a manner inconsistent with applicable laws, such as by transferring data across borders without adequate safeguards, or by failing to meet data minimization requirements. Ethically, it represents a failure to protect customer or stakeholder data adequately. Another incorrect approach would be to conduct a superficial assessment that only considers technical performance and cost, neglecting the critical aspects of data governance, security, and regulatory alignment. This oversight can result in unforeseen vulnerabilities and compliance gaps, exposing the organization to significant risks. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that prioritizes a thorough risk and impact assessment before committing to new cloud services. This involves engaging relevant stakeholders, including legal, compliance, and security teams, to ensure all potential implications are understood. The process should involve defining clear criteria for evaluating new services, documenting the assessment findings, and establishing a clear go/no-go decision based on the identified risks and mitigation strategies. Question 8. Research into the implications of a proposed hybrid cloud solution for a multinational corporation reveals that sensitive customer data will be processed and stored across multiple geographic regions. The solution architecture prioritizes performance and cost optimization. Which of the following approaches best addresses the potential regulatory and ethical challenges associated with this data processing scenario? Option A. Focus exclusively on the technical feasibility and cost-effectiveness of the hybrid cloud solution, assuming that business objectives and performance metrics are the primary drivers for architectural decisions. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment, DPIA, that specifically evaluates data residency requirements, cross-border data transfer mechanisms, and the adequacy of consent management processes in all relevant jurisdictions, integrating findings into the solution design. Option C. Proceed with the solution deployment as planned, with a commitment to retroactively address any identified data privacy compliance issues after the initial launch. Option D. Rely on the cloud service provider's standard compliance certifications to ensure that all data processing activities meet the necessary regulatory standards across all operating regions. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment, DPIA, that specifically evaluates data residency requirements, cross-border data transfer mechanisms, and the adequacy of consent management processes in all relevant jurisdictions, integrating findings into the solution design. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the need for rapid innovation and deployment with the imperative to comply with data privacy regulations. The architect must navigate the complexities of data residency, consent management, and potential cross-border data flows, all while ensuring the proposed solution meets business objectives. The challenge lies in identifying potential regulatory conflicts early in the design phase and proactively mitigating them, rather than treating compliance as an afterthought. Failure to do so can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and project delays. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a proactive and integrated impact assessment that considers the specific data types being processed, their sensitivity, the intended geographic locations of data storage and processing, and the applicable data protection laws, e.g., GDPR if the scenario implies European Union data subjects. This assessment should identify potential risks related to data sovereignty, consent mechanisms, and the need for data processing agreements with third-party cloud providers. By embedding this assessment into the solution design process, the architect ensures that compliance is a foundational element, not a bolt-on. This aligns with the principle of privacy by design and privacy by default, which are core tenets of modern data protection regulations. It demonstrates a commitment to ethical data handling and regulatory adherence, fostering trust with stakeholders and mitigating legal exposure. Incorrect approaches analysis. Focusing solely on the technical feasibility and cost-effectiveness of the cloud solution without a corresponding data privacy impact assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the fundamental legal obligations surrounding data protection, potentially leading to non-compliance with regulations like GDPR, CCPA, or other relevant data privacy laws. Such a failure can result in substantial fines, legal action, and severe damage to the organization's reputation. Prioritizing the immediate deployment of the solution to meet business deadlines, with the intention of addressing compliance concerns later, represents a reactive and high-risk strategy. This approach violates the principle of proactive compliance and privacy by design. It creates a situation where the organization may already be in breach of data protection laws before remediation can even begin, increasing the likelihood of penalties and making remediation more complex and costly. Assuming that the cloud provider's standard terms of service automatically guarantee compliance with all applicable data protection laws is another critical failure. While cloud providers offer robust security and compliance frameworks, the responsibility for ensuring compliance with specific data protection regulations ultimately rests with the data controller, the organization using the cloud service. Relying solely on the provider without due diligence regarding data processing agreements, data residency options, and specific regulatory requirements is a common pitfall that leads to non-compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud solution architecture, integrating compliance and impact assessments from the outset. This involves 1. Understanding the data. Clearly identify the types of data to be processed, their sensitivity, and the individuals to whom they relate. 2. Identifying applicable regulations. Determine which data protection laws and regulations govern the data based on its origin and intended use. 3. Conducting a data protection impact assessment, DPIA. Systematically evaluate the necessity and proportionality of the data processing, assess the risks to individuals' rights and freedoms, and identify measures to mitigate those risks. 4. Engaging legal and compliance teams. Collaborate with legal and compliance experts to ensure accurate interpretation and application of regulations. 5. Documenting decisions. Maintain thorough records of the impact assessment process, risk mitigation strategies, and compliance measures. 6. Continuous monitoring. Regularly review and update the assessment as the solution evolves or regulations change. Question 9. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire to integrate a new AI-driven analytics platform into the existing IBM cloud environment for a financial services organization. This platform promises to enhance fraud detection and personalize customer offerings. However, concerns have been raised regarding the potential impact on data privacy, the security of sensitive financial data, and the fairness of algorithmic decision-making. Given these concerns and the regulated nature of the financial services industry, what is the most appropriate approach to assessing the impact of this new AI platform? Option A. Proceed with the integration of the AI platform and initiate a post-deployment impact assessment to identify and address any issues that arise, focusing primarily on performance metrics and user adoption. Option B. Implement a narrowly focused technical impact assessment that only evaluates the integration points and performance of the AI platform within the IBM cloud environment, deferring broader compliance and ethical considerations to a later stage. Option C. Rely solely on the vendor's provided impact assessment documentation for the AI platform, assuming it meets all local regulatory requirements without independent verification. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive, multi-phased impact assessment that prioritizes data privacy, security, and algorithmic fairness, involving legal, compliance, and business stakeholders throughout the process, and iteratively refine the assessment as the integration progresses. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive, multi-phased impact assessment that prioritizes data privacy, security, and algorithmic fairness, involving legal, compliance, and business stakeholders throughout the process, and iteratively refine the assessment as the integration progresses. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the need for rapid innovation and deployment with the imperative to conduct thorough impact assessments. The professional challenge lies in identifying the appropriate scope and depth of an impact assessment when introducing a new, potentially disruptive technology like AI-driven analytics into an existing regulated financial services environment. The pressure to deliver quickly, coupled with the inherent complexity of AI and its potential downstream effects on data privacy, security, and regulatory compliance, necessitates a structured and informed approach. The correct approach involves a phased impact assessment that prioritizes critical areas such as data privacy, e.g., GDPR compliance if applicable to the jurisdiction, security vulnerabilities, and the potential for algorithmic bias, especially in a financial context where fairness and non-discrimination are paramount. This aligns with best practices in risk management and regulatory adherence, ensuring that the introduction of new technologies does not inadvertently create compliance gaps or introduce unacceptable risks. A phased approach allows for iterative refinement and ensures that foundational compliance requirements are met before proceeding to more advanced stages of deployment. This demonstrates a commitment to responsible innovation and proactive risk mitigation, which are hallmarks of professional cloud solution architecture. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with a superficial or narrowly focused assessment that only considers the immediate technical implementation without adequately evaluating its broader implications. For instance, focusing solely on the performance metrics of the AI model without assessing its data lineage, potential for bias, or adherence to data protection regulations would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This could lead to non-compliance with data privacy laws, potential for discriminatory outcomes in financial services, and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach would be to defer a comprehensive assessment until after deployment, which is a reactive and high-risk strategy. This approach ignores the proactive requirements of regulatory frameworks that often mandate risk assessments before the implementation of new systems, particularly those handling sensitive data or impacting customer-facing services. Such a delay could result in costly remediation efforts, regulatory penalties, and a loss of stakeholder trust. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the regulatory landscape relevant to the specific industry and jurisdiction. This involves identifying all applicable laws and guidelines related to data privacy, security, financial conduct, and AI ethics. The next step is to define the scope of the impact assessment based on the nature of the technology, the data it will process, and the potential impact on stakeholders and business processes. A risk-based approach should then be applied, prioritizing the assessment of high-impact areas. Continuous engagement with legal, compliance, and business stakeholders is crucial throughout the process to ensure all perspectives are considered and that the assessment remains relevant and actionable. Question 10. The audit findings indicate that the proposed migration of sensitive customer data to a new IBM cloud-based CRM solution has proceeded without a formal, documented assessment of its potential impact on data privacy, system availability, and adherence to relevant data protection regulations. Which of the following represents the most appropriate next step for the solutions architect to ensure compliance and mitigate risks? Option A. Conduct a quick, informal review of the CRM's features and the cloud provider's documentation to confirm it aligns with general business needs, and then continue the migration. Option B. Immediately halt the migration and initiate a comprehensive impact assessment, engaging legal and compliance teams to review data handling policies and regulatory requirements before proceeding. Option C. Delegate the responsibility for impact assessment to the project management office, assuming they have the necessary expertise to evaluate cloud-specific risks and regulatory adherence. Option D. Proceed with the migration as planned, relying on the IBM cloud provider's standard security certifications and assuming they meet all necessary compliance obligations. The correct answer is B. Immediately halt the migration and initiate a comprehensive impact assessment, engaging legal and compliance teams to review data handling policies and regulatory requirements before proceeding. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential gap in the organization's approach to impact assessment for a new cloud-based customer relationship management (CRM) system. This scenario is professionally challenging because the architect must balance the benefits of adopting new technology with the imperative to understand and mitigate potential risks to data privacy, system availability, and regulatory compliance. A thorough impact assessment is crucial to ensure that the new system aligns with business objectives and adheres to relevant regulations, preventing costly remediation or reputational damage. The correct approach involves a comprehensive and systematic evaluation of the proposed cloud CRM system's potential effects across various domains. This includes identifying all data types to be processed, assessing potential impacts on data privacy and security, evaluating the system's resilience and availability requirements, and determining its alignment with existing and future regulatory obligations. This systematic approach ensures that all stakeholders are informed, risks are identified early, and appropriate controls are implemented before deployment. This aligns with best professional practices in cloud architecture and IT governance, emphasizing proactive risk management and compliance by design. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the implementation without a formal impact assessment, assuming that standard cloud provider security measures are sufficient. This overlooks the organization's specific data handling practices, regulatory context, and unique business processes, leading to potential breaches of data privacy regulations and non-compliance with industry-specific mandates. Another incorrect approach is to conduct a superficial assessment that only considers technical performance, neglecting the critical aspects of data governance, legal implications, and user impact. This can result in unforeseen operational disruptions, data loss, or significant legal penalties. A third incorrect approach is to delegate the entire impact assessment to the cloud vendor without independent verification or internal review. While vendors provide valuable information, the ultimate responsibility for compliance and risk management rests with the organization adopting the service. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with understanding the regulatory landscape applicable to the organization's data and operations. This is followed by a detailed analysis of the proposed solution's capabilities and potential interactions with existing systems and data. The framework should mandate a multidisciplinary team to conduct the assessment, incorporating expertise from IT, legal, compliance, and business units. Finally, the process must include a clear reporting mechanism for findings and recommendations, with a defined escalation path for significant risks. Question 11. Which approach would be most effective for an IBM Cloud Solutions architect to ensure a new cloud-based analytics service aligns with business objectives and regulatory requirements while minimizing potential negative impacts? Option A. Rely on informal feedback from early adopters to gauge the service's performance and potential risks before a full rollout. Option B. Focus exclusively on the cost-saving benefits of the cloud service, assuming that security and compliance will be managed by other teams. Option C. Prioritize the rapid deployment of the service to capture market opportunities, addressing any identified issues reactively as they arise. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates technical feasibility, operational readiness, security posture, data privacy implications, and alignment with IBM cloud governance policies. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates technical feasibility, operational readiness, security posture, data privacy implications, and alignment with IBM cloud governance policies. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with robust risk management and compliance. The professional challenge lies in identifying and mitigating potential negative impacts of a new cloud service before it is widely adopted, ensuring alignment with business objectives and regulatory requirements. Careful judgment is required to avoid both overcaution that stifles progress and undercaution that exposes the organization to unacceptable risks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically evaluates the potential consequences of introducing a new cloud service across various dimensions. This includes technical feasibility, operational impact, security vulnerabilities, data privacy implications, and alignment with existing governance frameworks. By conducting a thorough impact assessment, the architect can proactively identify risks, propose mitigation strategies, and ensure that the proposed solution adheres to relevant IBM cloud policies and industry best practices for cloud adoption. This aligns with the principle of responsible innovation, where new technologies are introduced with a clear understanding of their potential effects. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical benefits without considering broader implications fails to address potential security risks and data privacy concerns. This could lead to regulatory noncompliance, reputational damage, and financial penalties if sensitive data is mishandled or if the service violates data protection laws. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost savings above all else might overlook critical security controls or operational resilience requirements, exposing the organization to significant business disruption and data breaches. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or informal feedback rather than structured analysis lacks the rigor necessary to identify and quantify potential impacts, leading to uninformed decision-making and increased risk exposure. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the scope and objectives of the cloud solution. This should be followed by a comprehensive impact assessment that considers technical, operational, security, compliance, and business aspects. Risk identification and mitigation planning are crucial steps, ensuring that potential negative outcomes are addressed before implementation. Finally, continuous monitoring and review are essential to adapt to evolving threats and business needs. Question 12. The review process indicates that a client operating within a highly regulated financial services sector in the United States requires the integration of a new IBM cloud-based analytics service to process sensitive customer financial data. The existing IBM cloud environment is already configured to meet specific U.S. financial regulations, including those pertaining to data residency and auditability. The proposed analytics service has not undergone a formal security and compliance assessment against these specific U.S. financial regulations. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance and security for this integration? Option A. Proceed with the integration of the analytics service, applying standard IBM cloud security configurations and assuming they meet the client's specific U.S. financial regulatory requirements. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive security and compliance assessment of the proposed analytics service against the client's specific U.S. financial regulatory obligations and develop a tailored integration plan that addresses any identified risks and ensures data residency and auditability before proceeding with deployment. Option C. Integrate the analytics service using a cost optimization strategy, focusing on the most economical IBM cloud services and deferring detailed security and compliance reviews until operational issues arise. Option D. Immediately integrate the analytics service into the existing IBM cloud environment, prioritizing rapid deployment to meet business demands and address any potential compliance gaps post-implementation. Correct answer is A. Proceed with the integration of the analytics service, applying standard IBM cloud security configurations and assuming they meet the client's specific U.S. financial regulatory requirements. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with the imperative to maintain robust security and compliance. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate method for integrating a new, potentially sensitive data processing service into an existing IBM cloud environment, ensuring adherence to the specific regulatory framework governing the client's industry. The client's industry is subject to strict data privacy regulations, requiring careful consideration of data residency, access controls, and audit trails. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough risk assessment and architectural review before implementation. This aligns with the principles of responsible cloud adoption, ensuring that security and compliance are embedded from the outset rather than being an afterthought. Specifically, it demonstrates due diligence in understanding the implications of the new service on the overall security posture and regulatory compliance of the IBM cloud environment. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of data breaches, regulatory penalties, and reputational damage. An incorrect approach that involves immediate deployment without adequate vetting fails to uphold the client's regulatory obligations. This could lead to violations of data privacy laws, such as unauthorized data access or improper data handling, resulting in significant fines and legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on cost optimization without considering security implications, ignores the fundamental responsibility of protecting sensitive data. This oversight can expose the client to severe security vulnerabilities and compliance failures. Finally, an approach that relies on generic security best practices without tailoring them to the specific regulatory requirements of the client's industry is insufficient. Effective compliance demands a precise understanding and application of relevant laws and guidelines. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the client's business objectives, regulatory landscape, and existing technical environment. This is followed by a detailed assessment of potential solutions, evaluating them against security, compliance, performance, and cost criteria. The process should involve collaboration with security and compliance teams to ensure all requirements are met. When faced with choices, the decision should always favor the option that demonstrably provides the highest level of assurance for data protection and regulatory adherence, even if it requires a more deliberate implementation phase. Question 13. The analysis reveals that a regulated financial institution is migrating its core customer transaction processing system to IBM Cloud. The primary regulatory concerns are ensuring data residency within the United States, maintaining continuous availability of the system with minimal downtime in the event of a disaster, and providing comprehensive audit trails for all data access and modifications. The proposed solution must align with these critical compliance requirements. Which of the following architectural approaches best addresses these regulatory mandates for the IBM cloud deployment? Option A. Deploy the application in a single U.S. IBM cloud region and rely on third-party disaster recovery solutions that are not integrated with IBM cloud services, while ensuring data is encrypted at rest. Option B. Deploy the application and all data within a single IBM cloud region in the U.S., utilizing standard IBM cloud backup services for disaster recovery, and enabling default logging for audit purposes. Option C. Utilize IBM Cloud's global load balancing to distribute traffic across various international IBM Cloud regions to maximize performance and cost efficiency, with data backup stored in a separate off-site location. Option D. Implement a multi-region deployment strategy across multiple IBM Cloud regions within the United States, with active-active or active-passive data replication to ensure high availability and data residency, and configure detailed, immutable audit logging for all data operations. Correct answer is B. Deploy the application and all data within a single IBM Cloud region in the U.S., utilizing standard IBM Cloud backup services for disaster recovery and enabling default logging for audit purposes. Explanation. The analysis reveals a scenario where a financial services firm is migrating a critical customer data processing application to IBM Cloud. The firm operates under strict financial regulations, requiring robust data protection, auditability, and disaster recovery capabilities. The challenge lies in designing a cloud architecture that not only meets functional requirements, but also adheres to these stringent regulatory mandates, specifically focusing on data residency and business continuity. The correct approach involves designing a multi-region deployment strategy for the application and its data, leveraging IBM Cloud's robust disaster recovery and high availability features. This includes implementing data replication across geographically distinct IBM Cloud regions to ensure data residency compliance and enable rapid failover in case of an outage. Furthermore, implementing comprehensive logging and auditing mechanisms within the IBM Cloud environment is crucial for meeting regulatory auditability requirements. This approach directly addresses the core regulatory concerns of data protection, availability, and compliance by proactively building resilience and transparency into the cloud architecture. An incorrect approach would be to deploy the application and data within a single IBM Cloud region, relying solely on standard backup procedures. This fails to meet the regulatory requirement for robust disaster recovery and business continuity, as a regional outage would lead to significant downtime and potential data loss. It also compromises data residency if the single region is not aligned with the firm's specific jurisdictional requirements. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize cost savings by using less resilient storage options or omitting cross-region data replication. This directly violates regulatory mandates for data protection and availability, exposing the firm to unacceptable risks and potential penalties. A third incorrect approach would be to neglect the implementation of detailed audit trails for data access and modifications within the IBM Cloud environment. This would render the firm incapable of demonstrating compliance during regulatory audits, leading to severe repercussions. Professional reasoning in such situations requires a thorough understanding of the client's regulatory obligations, coupled with deep knowledge of IBM Cloud's capabilities. The decision-making process should prioritize compliance and risk mitigation, followed by functional and performance requirements. Architects must proactively identify potential regulatory pitfalls and design solutions that embed compliance from the outset, rather than attempting to retrofit it later. This involves engaging with compliance officers and legal counsel to ensure all regulatory nuances are addressed. Question 14. Quality control measures reveal that a proposed solution architecture for a new customer-facing application on IBM Cloud has not adequately addressed data residency requirements for sensitive customer information, potentially violating data protection regulations. The solution leverages several IBM Cloud services, including IBM Cloud Kubernetes Service and IBM Cloud Object Storage. The architect is now tasked with re-evaluating the architecture to ensure compliance. Which of the following approaches best addresses this compliance gap and represents professional best practice? Option A. Conduct a thorough data classification exercise to identify all sensitive data elements, map them to specific IBM Cloud services used, and then engage with legal and compliance teams to determine the most appropriate IBM Cloud regions and service configurations to meet all applicable data protection regulations. Option B. Immediately reconfigure IBM Cloud Object Storage to use a region that meets the data residency requirements and proceed with the application deployment, assuming the Kubernetes cluster configuration is already compliant. Option C. Assume that IBM Cloud's global infrastructure inherently satisfies all data residency requirements and focus solely on optimizing the application's performance and scalability. Option D. Update the application code to encrypt all sensitive data before it is sent to IBM Cloud services, thereby mitigating any potential data residency concerns regardless of the chosen region. The correct answer is B. Immediately reconfigure IBM Cloud Object Storage to use a region that meets the data residency requirements and proceed with the application deployment, assuming the Kubernetes cluster configuration is already compliant. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid innovation and the need for robust security and compliance in cloud environments. The architect must balance the desire to leverage cutting-edge IBM Cloud services for competitive advantage with the imperative to adhere to stringent data privacy regulations. The complexity arises from understanding the shared responsibility model in cloud, the specific data residency requirements, and the potential for misconfigurations to lead to regulatory breaches. Careful judgment is required to select services and configurations that meet both business objectives and legal obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough understanding of the data's classification and the applicable regulatory framework before selecting and configuring IBM cloud services. This aligns with the principle of privacy by design and security by design, which are foundational to many data protection regulations. By engaging legal and compliance teams early, the architect ensures that the chosen services and their configurations meet specific requirements for data sovereignty, encryption, access control, and auditability. This proactive approach minimizes the risk of noncompliance, which can result in significant fines, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible cloud adoption and adherence to professional ethical standards. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with the implementation based solely on technical feasibility and performance metrics, without a comprehensive review of data classification and regulatory compliance. This fails to acknowledge the critical importance of data protection laws, leading to potential violations of data residency, consent, or security requirements. Such an oversight can result in severe penalties and legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach is to assume that IBM Cloud's default security configurations are sufficient for all data types and regulatory environments. While IBM Cloud offers robust security features, specific compliance mandates may require additional configurations, stricter access controls, or specialized data handling procedures. Relying on defaults without due diligence can lead to compliance gaps and expose sensitive data to unauthorized access or breaches, violating regulatory obligations. A third incorrect approach is to defer the compliance review until after the solution is deployed. This reactive stance is professionally unsound and ethically questionable. It significantly increases the risk of discovering noncompliance issues late in the development cycle, leading to costly rework, project delays, and potential legal liabilities. It also demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to integrate compliance as a core aspect of the solution architecture. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach, starting with a clear understanding of the data being processed and the relevant legal and regulatory landscape. This involves proactive engagement with legal, compliance, and security stakeholders. The architect should then map these requirements to the capabilities of IBM Cloud services, ensuring that chosen services and configurations meet or exceed compliance obligations. Documentation of these decisions and the rationale behind them is crucial for auditability and accountability. Continuous monitoring and periodic reviews are also essential to adapt to evolving regulations and service updates. Question 15. The assessment process reveals that a financial services client, operating under the strict data residency and privacy regulations of the United States, intends to leverage IBM Cloud for a new customer analytics platform. This platform will process personally identifiable information, PI, and sensitive financial data. The client's primary business objective is to achieve rapid deployment and scalability to gain a competitive edge. The solution architect must design a cloud infrastructure that meets these competing demands while ensuring absolute compliance with U.S. federal and state data protection laws. Which of the following approaches best addresses the architect's responsibilities and the client's requirements? Option A. Engage with the client's legal counsel and compliance officers to conduct a thorough data classification exercise. Identify all PII and sensitive financial data, and then architect the solution using IBM Cloud services that are specifically certified and located within U.S. jurisdictions, ensuring data remains within the U.S. Option B. Propose a hybrid cloud architecture where all sensitive financial data is stored on premises in the client's data center, while less sensitive customer analytics data is deployed to IBM Cloud services in a region outside the United States to reduce latency and cost. Option C. Prioritize rapid deployment by selecting the most performant and feature-rich IBM Cloud services available globally, assuming that the client's data will be adequately protected by the cloud provider's standard security measures. Option D. Design the solution using IBM Cloud services deployed across multiple U.S. regions to ensure high availability and disaster recovery, and rely on the IBM Cloud's general compliance certifications to meet regulatory needs. Correct answer is D. Design the solution using IBM Cloud services deployed across multiple U.S. regions to ensure high availability and disaster recovery, and rely on the IBM Cloud's general compliance certifications to meet regulatory needs. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with stringent data residency and privacy regulations. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying complex legal frameworks to technical design decisions, ensuring compliance without stifling business agility. Careful judgment is required to understand the nuances of data sovereignty, the implications of cross-border data flows, and the specific requirements of the governing jurisdiction. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the regulatory landscape before committing to a technical solution. By engaging legal counsel and conducting a detailed data classification exercise, the architect ensures that the chosen cloud services and data handling strategies align with the specific requirements of the C1000-017 exams jurisdiction. This proactive, compliance-first methodology minimizes the risk of regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and the costly need for remediation. It demonstrates a commitment to ethical data stewardship and responsible cloud adoption, which are paramount for an IBM Cloud Solutions architect. An incorrect approach that proposes deploying sensitive data to a cloud region outside the specified jurisdiction without explicit legal review and consent fails to adhere to data residency laws. This constitutes a direct regulatory violation and an ethical breach, as it disregards the client's obligation to protect sensitive information according to the governing framework. Another incorrect approach that suggests ignoring the data classification and proceeding with a generic, multi-region deployment overlooks the critical need for tailored compliance. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the potential legal ramifications of mishandling regulated data. Finally, an approach that relies solely on the cloud provider's general compliance statements without independent verification or specific legal consultation is insufficient. While cloud providers offer robust compliance programs, the ultimate responsibility for data protection and adherence to specific jurisdictional laws rests with the client and their architect. This approach risks misinterpreting the scope of the provider's compliance and failing to meet the unique requirements of the client's data and the exam's jurisdiction. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the client's business objectives and regulatory obligations. This involves proactive engagement with legal and compliance teams, thorough data classification, and a risk-based assessment of potential cloud solutions. Architects must then translate these requirements into technical designs, prioritizing solutions that demonstrably meet compliance mandates. Continuous monitoring and periodic reevaluation of compliance posture are also essential components of responsible cloud architecture. Question 16. During the evaluation of a new IBM cloud solution for a financial services client, the architect identifies a potential for significant cost savings by leveraging a public cloud service for processing sensitive customer data. However, the client operates under strict data residency and privacy regulations that mandate data be stored and processed within specific geographic boundaries. The architect must propose a solution that meets both the cost optimization goals and the stringent regulatory requirements. Option A. Advise the client to adopt a multi-cloud strategy, distributing data across various cloud providers to find the cheapest option, without a detailed analysis of each provider's compliance with the client's specific data residency regulations. Option B. Suggest using data anonymization techniques on all customer data before migrating it to the public cloud, even though the regulations require identifiable data to be processed within specific jurisdictions. Option C. Recommend a hybrid cloud architecture that utilizes IBM Cloud's private cloud offerings for sensitive data processing and storage, while leveraging public cloud services for less sensitive workloads, ensuring data residency compliance through careful network segmentation and access controls. Option D. Propose migrating all customer data to the public cloud service immediately to realize the maximum cost savings, with a plan to address data residency concerns in a subsequent phase after initial deployment. The correct answer is C. Recommend a hybrid cloud architecture that utilizes IBM Cloud's private cloud offerings for sensitive data processing and storage, while leveraging public cloud services for less sensitive workloads, ensuring data residency compliance through careful network segmentation and access controls. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid innovation and the need for robust security and compliance in cloud environments. The architect must balance the business's desire for agility and cost optimization with the imperative to protect sensitive data and adhere to regulatory mandates. The complexity arises from the interconnectedness of cloud services, the dynamic nature of threat landscapes, and the evolving regulatory requirements. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the proposed solutions are not only technically sound, but also legally compliant and ethically responsible. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive risk assessment and a phased implementation strategy. This aligns with the principles of responsible cloud adoption, emphasizing security by design and continuous compliance. By engaging stakeholders early and establishing clear governance, the architect ensures that all relevant parties are aligned and that potential risks are identified and mitigated proactively. This approach fosters trust, reduces the likelihood of costly remediation, and demonstrates a commitment to regulatory adherence and data protection, which are paramount in the IBM Cloud Solutions architect role. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without adequately assessing security implications would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for data privacy regulations and potential breach notification requirements, leading to significant financial penalties and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that bypasses established change management and security review processes, even with the intention of accelerating deployment, is also professionally unsound. This violates principles of operational integrity and auditability, potentially exposing the organization to vulnerabilities and non-compliance with industry standards and legal frameworks. A third incorrect approach that neglects to consider data residency requirements, especially in regulated industries, would be a critical ethical and regulatory failure, risking non-compliance with data sovereignty laws and leading to severe legal repercussions. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the business objectives and constraints. This is followed by a thorough assessment of the technical requirements, security considerations, and regulatory landscape. A risk-based approach should then guide the selection of solutions and implementation strategies, prioritizing those that offer the best balance of functionality, security, and compliance. Continuous monitoring and adaptation are crucial throughout the lifecycle of cloud solutions to maintain security posture and regulatory alignment. Question 17. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of unauthorized access to sensitive customer data and a moderate likelihood of data corruption due to misconfiguration. The proposed solution involves migrating a critical customer database to IBM Cloud. Which architectural approach best balances security, compliance, and agility for this scenario? Option A. Deploy the database with minimal security configurations to expedite the migration timeline, and plan to address security and compliance concerns through periodic manual security audits conducted quarterly. Option B. Architect the solution with a focus on developer flexibility, allowing individual teams to select their preferred security tools and configurations, with the understanding that the central IT security team will review these choices retrospectively. Option C. Implement robust identity and access management (IAM) controls with multi-factor authentication. Leverage IBM Cloud Key Protect for data encryption at rest and in transit, and utilize IBM Cloud Activity Tracker for comprehensive auditing. Configure automated compliance checks using IBM Cloud Security and Compliance Center to continuously monitor adherence to security policies. Option D. Prioritize the lowest cost deployment option for the database, assuming that standard IBM Cloud security measures will be sufficient and relying on the development team to implement any necessary security patches post-deployment. The correct answer is C. Implement robust identity and access management (IAM) controls with multi-factor authentication. Leverage IBM Cloud Key Protect for data encryption at rest and in transit, and utilize IBM Cloud Activity Tracker for comprehensive auditing. Configure automated compliance checks using IBM Cloud Security and Compliance Center to continuously monitor adherence to security policies. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with robust security and compliance requirements. The professional challenge lies in interpreting the risk matrix, which is a qualitative tool, and translating its findings into concrete architectural decisions that satisfy both business objectives and regulatory mandates. The architect must exercise sound judgment to avoid over-engineering solutions that stifle agility or under-engineering them, leading to compliance breaches. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified risks by implementing layered security controls and leveraging IBM Cloud's native compliance features. This demonstrates a proactive and responsible approach to cloud security and governance. Specifically, it aligns with the principle of security by design and compliance by design, ensuring that security and compliance are integral to the solution from its inception. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of future security incidents and regulatory penalties, which is a core ethical and professional responsibility of a solutions architect. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost optimization without adequately addressing the high-risk findings in the risk matrix represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It prioritizes short-term financial gains over long-term security and compliance, potentially exposing the organization to data breaches, reputational damage, and substantial fines. This approach neglects the architect's duty to protect the organization's assets and sensitive data. Another incorrect approach that relies on manual, ad hoc security checks for high-risk areas is also professionally unacceptable. This method is inherently inefficient, prone to human error, and lacks the scalability and consistency required for a cloud environment. It fails to establish a repeatable and auditable compliance framework, which is a fundamental requirement for many regulatory bodies. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of modern cloud security best practices and a failure to implement robust governance. A third incorrect approach that delegates all security and compliance responsibilities to the development team without providing clear architectural guidance or oversight is a failure of leadership and accountability. While developers play a crucial role, the solutions architect is responsible for defining the overall security posture and ensuring that the architecture supports compliance objectives. This abdication of responsibility can lead to fragmented security controls and compliance gaps. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of the risk matrix, followed by a thorough understanding of the relevant regulatory frameworks. In this case, implied to be U.S.-centric given the context of IBM Cloud Solutions Architect v3, which often involves U.S. regulations like HIPAA, PCI DSS, GDPR if applicable to U.S. operations, etc. The architect should then map these risks and regulatory requirements to specific IBM cloud services and architectural patterns. Prioritizing controls based on risk level, leveraging automation for security and compliance, and fostering collaboration between security, development, and operations teams are key elements of this process. Question 18. Market research demonstrates that a financial services firm is looking to leverage IBM Cloud to modernize its core banking applications, which handle highly sensitive customer financial data. The firm operates under strict financial regulations that mandate robust data protection, auditability, and resilience. The solutions architect is tasked with recommending a cloud strategy that balances innovation with compliance. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and professional best practices for this scenario? Option A. Rely solely on the IBM Cloud vendor's compliance certifications and marketing materials to validate that the chosen services meet the firm's regulatory obligations without performing independent due diligence. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive assessment of IBM Cloud services against the specific data protection, auditability, and resilience requirements mandated by the financial services regulations, and select services that demonstrably meet these criteria, engaging legal and compliance teams throughout the process. Option C. Select the most cutting-edge and feature-rich IBM Cloud services to accelerate application modernization, with the understanding that compliance can be addressed through post-deployment security configurations and vendor questionnaires. Option D. Prioritize cloud services that offer the lowest total cost of ownership, assuming that the chosen IBM Cloud services will inherently meet regulatory requirements due to IBM's reputation. Correct answer is D. Prioritize cloud services that offer the lowest total cost of ownership, assuming that the chosen IBM cloud services will inherently meet regulatory requirements due to IBM's reputation. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the need for rapid innovation and deployment with the stringent requirements of data privacy and security regulations. The architect must navigate the complexities of a regulated industry, where non-compliance can lead to severe financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing cloud services that meet both functional and compliance needs without compromising the integrity or confidentiality of sensitive data. Careful judgment is required to select solutions that are not only technologically sound, but also demonstrably compliant with the relevant regulatory framework. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the specific regulatory obligations before selecting any cloud service. This proactive stance ensures that the chosen solution is designed with compliance in mind from the outset, rather than attempting to retrofit compliance measures later, which is often more costly and less effective. Adhering to the principle of privacy by design and security by design is a cornerstone of ethical and compliant cloud architecture. This approach aligns with the spirit and letter of regulations that mandate data protection and risk mitigation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without a comprehensive compliance assessment is professionally unacceptable. This failure constitutes a direct violation of regulatory mandates that place the responsibility for data protection squarely on the organization. Such an approach demonstrates a disregard for the potential harm to individuals whose data is compromised and exposes the organization to significant legal and financial repercussions. Another incorrect approach that relies on vendor assurances without independent verification is also professionally unsound. While vendors provide assurances, the ultimate responsibility for compliance rests with the deploying organization. Failing to conduct due diligence and independent validation of a vendor's compliance claims can lead to a false sense of security and expose the organization to regulatory scrutiny and penalties. This demonstrates a lack of professional diligence and an abdication of responsibility. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This framework should begin with a clear identification of all applicable regulatory requirements. Subsequently, it should involve evaluating potential cloud solutions against these requirements, including a deep dive into the vendor's security certifications, data handling policies, and incident response capabilities. A critical step is to involve legal and compliance teams early in the process to ensure all aspects of the regulatory landscape are adequately addressed. Finally, a continuous monitoring and auditing process should be established to ensure ongoing compliance as the cloud environment evolves. Question 19. Regulatory review indicates that a financial services organization is planning to deploy a new customer onboarding platform on a multi-cloud environment. The platform will process sensitive customer financial data, including personally identifiable information, PI, and transaction details. The organization requires the solution to be highly available and scalable, with a target deployment timeline of 6 months. The architect is tasked with designing a solution that ensures compliance with data privacy regulations, specifically regarding data residency and cross-border data transfers, while also meeting the business's performance and agility demands. Which of the following architectural approaches best addresses these multifaceted requirements? Option A. Implement a robust data governance framework from the outset, including data classification, consent management, and data minimization strategies, and select cloud services and configurations that explicitly support data residency requirements and provide strong encryption for data in transit and at rest. Option B. Rely primarily on the contractual agreements with the cloud providers to ensure compliance, assuming their standard terms of service adequately cover all data privacy and residency obligations for financial data. Option C. Prioritize rapid deployment by utilizing the default security and compliance settings provided by the chosen cloud providers, with a plan to address specific regulatory concerns in a post-deployment audit. Option D. Design the solution to leverage the most cost-effective and performant cloud services across multiple providers, with a focus on abstracting data access layers to mask the underlying data location from the application. The correct answer is D. Design the solution to leverage the most cost-effective and performant cloud services across multiple providers, with a focus on abstracting data access layers to mask the underlying data location from the application. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with the imperative to comply with data privacy regulations. The architect must navigate the complexities of data residency, consent management, and the potential for cross-border data transfers, all while ensuring the solution meets business objectives. The professional challenge lies in identifying and mitigating risks associated with data handling in a multi-cloud environment, where different cloud providers may have varying compliance postures and data processing agreements. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive data governance strategy that is integrated into the solution design from the outset. This includes conducting a thorough data classification exercise to understand the sensitivity of the data being processed, identifying all data flows, and mapping them to relevant regulatory requirements. Implementing robust consent management mechanisms, ensuring data minimization, and establishing clear data retention policies are critical. Furthermore, selecting cloud services and configurations that support data residency requirements and provide strong encryption for data at rest and in transit are paramount. This approach aligns with the principles of privacy by design and privacy by default, which are foundational to many data protection regulations, such as GDPR, assuming a relevant jurisdiction for the exam. It demonstrates a proactive and responsible stance towards data protection, minimizing legal and reputational risks. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of deployment over data privacy considerations, assuming that the cloud provider's standard offerings will inherently meet all regulatory needs. This fails to acknowledge that compliance is a shared responsibility and that specific configurations and data handling practices are crucial. It risks violating data residency laws, inadequate consent mechanisms, and unauthorized data transfers, leading to significant fines and legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach is to implement data protection measures only after the solution has been deployed and is in production. This reactive strategy is often insufficient to address pre-existing compliance gaps and can be far more costly and complex to remediate. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to embed compliance into the core architecture, potentially exposing sensitive data to breaches or unauthorized access during the interim period. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on contractual agreements with cloud providers without independently verifying their compliance posture and the specific controls in place for the services being utilized. While contracts are important, they do not absolve the architect of their responsibility to ensure the solution itself is compliant. This can lead to a false sense of security, as contractual clauses may not fully cover the nuances of data processing and may not be actively enforced or monitored by the architect. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud solution architecture, where data privacy and regulatory compliance are treated as non-negotiable requirements. This involves a continuous cycle of assessment, design, implementation, and monitoring. Key decision-making steps include: 1. Understanding the data, classify data sensitivity, and identify all personal or regulated data. 2. Mapping data flows, document how data moves within the solution and across different environments. 3. Identifying regulatory obligations, determine applicable laws and regulations based on data subject location and data type. 4. Designing for privacy, integrate privacy by design principles into the architecture, including consent, minimization, and access controls. 5. Selecting compliant services. Choose cloud services and configurations that support data residency and security requirements. 6. Implementing robust security. Ensure encryption, access management, and threat detection are in place. 7. Continuous monitoring and auditing. Regularly review and update compliance measures as regulations and business needs evolve. Question 20. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a public cloud solution offers significant operational cost reductions, but the client operates in a highly regulated industry with strict data residency requirements for all sensitive customer information within the United Kingdom. Which architectural approach best balances these competing priorities while ensuring regulatory compliance? Option A. Choose IBM cloud services based on their performance metrics and scalability, with the expectation that data residency can be addressed through application-level configurations managed by the client. Option B. Deploy IBM cloud services without specific data residency considerations, relying on the general understanding that IBM Cloud adheres to global data protection standards. Option C. Select IBM Cloud services that explicitly guarantee data residency within the United Kingdom, even if they incur a slightly higher operational cost compared to services with broader global availability. Option D. Prioritize the lowest-cost IBM cloud services available globally, assuming the client's internal IT team can implement post-deployment measures to ensure data remains within the UK. The correct answer is C. Select IBM cloud services that explicitly guarantee data residency within the United Kingdom, even if they incur a slightly higher operational cost compared to services with broader global availability. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud solution architecture, balancing the immediate cost savings of a public cloud offering with the long-term implications of data sovereignty and regulatory compliance. The architect must navigate the complexities of IBM cloud service offerings, specifically considering the implications of data residency for a regulated industry. The professional challenge lies in translating abstract regulatory requirements into concrete architectural decisions that ensure both business objectives, cost efficiency, and legal obligations are met. This requires a deep understanding of the specific regulations applicable to the client's industry and jurisdiction, as well as the capabilities and limitations of the chosen cloud provider's services. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes understanding and adhering to the specific data residency regulations applicable to the client's industry and jurisdiction. This involves a thorough review of relevant laws and guidelines, such as those governing financial services or healthcare data within the designated region. The architect must then identify IBM cloud services that explicitly guarantee data residency within the required geographical boundaries. This might involve selecting specific IBM cloud regions or utilizing services with built-in data localization features. This approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the primary regulatory imperative, ensuring data is stored and processed in compliance with local laws. Failure to do so can result in severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of client trust. This proactive, compliance-first strategy mitigates risk and builds a foundation of trust. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that focuses solely on the lowest-cost public cloud offering without verifying data residency guarantees is professionally unacceptable. This represents a significant regulatory failure because it disregards the explicit legal requirements for data location. Such an approach prioritizes cost over compliance, potentially exposing the client to legal action and fines. Another incorrect approach is to assume that all IBM cloud services, regardless of region, will meet data residency requirements. This is a dangerous assumption that ignores the nuances of cloud service deployment and data management. Regulatory bodies often have strict rules about where sensitive data can reside, and a generic assumption can lead to non-compliance. This approach demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to understand the specific implications of the chosen cloud provider's global infrastructure. Finally, an approach that relies on the client's internal IT team to manage data residency after deployment, without architecting for it from the outset, is also professionally flawed. While internal teams have a role, the cloud solutions architect is responsible for designing a compliant solution. Offloading this critical responsibility to another team without clear architectural mandates is a failure of accountability and a potential source of regulatory noncompliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals in cloud architecture must adopt a risk-based decision-making process. This begins with a comprehensive understanding of the client's business requirements, including their industry, geographical operations, and any specific regulatory obligations. The next step is to map these requirements to the capabilities and limitations of potential cloud solutions. When regulatory compliance, particularly data residency, is a factor, It must be treated as a non-negotiable constraint. Architects should actively seek out cloud services and configurations that demonstrably meet these requirements. Engaging with the client's legal and compliance teams early in the design process is crucial. If there is any ambiguity regarding regulatory interpretation or service capabilities, seeking clarification from the cloud provider and the client's compliance officers is paramount. The ultimate goal is to deliver a solution that is not only technically sound and cost-effective, but also fully compliant and ethically responsible.